Embattled Congressman-elect George Santos has been on his apology tour all week. But rather than make things better, it looks like his explanations are actually making things worse.
I apologize if anybody feels hurt or betrayed. I've gone through the gauntlet over the last week and, I brought it upon myself.
And this morning, more inconsistencies revealed in his story. While several investigations into Santos' campaign are currently underway, and joining us this morning is New York Congressman Ritchie Torres to discuss a new bill he's introducing to prevent this from ever happening again. Congressman Torres, thanks so much for joining us. You drafted this legislation, so first and foremost, tell us about that, how you would basically make it illegal for candidates to lie about their background, correct?
Yeah, so it's a scandal that a candidate like George Santos can lie to the voters about his qualifications, about his employment, educational history. And so I introduced the Santos Act, which will require federal candidates to disclose in writing, under oath, under the penalty of perjury, their employment, educational, and military history, which will enable voters to detect lies and which will enable the exposing and punishing of candidates who tell those lies. Because what Mr. Santos has done is unacceptable. I mean, he pretended to be a Ukrainian, Belgian, Jewish, Catholic, whose mother died twice, including on 9/11, whose ancestors survived the Holocaust, whose employees died in the Pulse mass shooting, and who magically became a millionaire overnight. The life story of George Santos may be the greatest fiction in the history of congressional politics.
Congressman, because of all of that, we know there are several investigations now underway. The Nassau County DA is looking into those claims from Santos. The New York Attorney General is also looking into these claims. But what will it take for the House Ethics Committee to open up an official investigation into George Santos' actions?
Well, George Santos should be the target of multiple investigations, both criminal and civil. I mean, the House Ethics Committee should investigate George Santos for falsifying his financial disclosure. The U.S. Attorney and the District Attorney should investigate George Santos for possible fraud. The Federal Elections Commission should investigate him for possible campaign finance fraud. The most important question is, where did all his money come from? A decade ago, George Santos was a wage earner at a Dish Network call center, facing repeat evictions, accumulating thousands of dollars in debt. And as late as May of 2020, he reported a salary of $55,000. Then in 2021 and 2022, he reported earning somewhere between $3.5 to $11.5 million. That's an astronomical growth in his wealth that he has never fully explained. So the investigators must follow the money.
I know that you laid all of that out in a formal letter urging the House Ethics Committee to investigate this. But part of Vanessa's question was, what would it take to get them to actually do that? What is the next step?
So first, no matter which party's in power, whether it's Democrats or Republicans, the Ethics Committee is evenly bipartisan. The process starts with the Office of Congressional Ethics, which will conduct a preliminary review. And then as the preliminary review finds that the allegations have merit, it will refer the matter to the Ethics Committee, and the Ethics Committee will conduct its own investigation and determine what punishment is appropriate. It could be penalties, it could be censure, or even expulsion.
And to that point, this really is a bipartisan issue, right? Some House Democrats have also called on Santos to resign, but so have fellow Republicans, including Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman. Here's what he had to say when we caught up with him over the phone. Let's take a listen.
The only thing that I can conclude is that he's probably got some kind of emotional issue that he needs to take care of, because those weren't just embellishments. They were out and out lies.
Now, Congressman Torres, we know Republican leader Kevin McCarthy has been rather quiet on this issue. Do you think this is going to hurt his chances of becoming the next speaker?
It should hurt his chances of becoming the next speaker. George Santos is an indictment of the Republican Party. The Republican Party knowingly endorsed a fraud to run for public office. George Santos defrauded the voters of New York State in the name of and on behalf of the Republican Party. And so there should be accountability. And I find it outrageous that Republican leadership has said nothing about the fraudulence of George Santos.
It's important to point out before we let you go, new members of Congress will be sworn in on Tuesday. The only way Santos will lose his seat is if he's convicted of a felony. So what are the chances that Santos will be forced to step down even before taking office? And are there protocols in place for a special election?
A special election could unfold, but look, investigations will take time. But he's under investigation from the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District. He faces a real risk of indictment, and so there's one circumstance in which he could agree to resign as part of a plea bargain with the U.S. Attorney. That would be the quickest path to his removal from public office.
I really think everyone is wondering at this point, like, how did this happen? How did this get so far on both sides of the aisle?
It was a failure across the board. It was a failure on the part of the Republicans who nominated him. It was a failure on the part of Democrats who did not do enough research on him. And it was a failure on the part of the media for not reporting on it extensively before it was too late. So I think we all deserve blame. But rather than dwell on the past, I want to introduce legislation that prevents a repeat of George Santos in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Congressman Ritchie Torres. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. And we certainly wish you and your family a very happy and healthy new year.
Take care.